What's up guys, Kazungu here and welcome back to another Destiny 2 video. This video is a little late coming out, and I'm sorry about that, but it's just because my computer decided that it didn't like Adobe Creative Cloud anymore and I wasn't able to get this video edited. But today we'll be talking about the Uzume RR4 sniper rifle, which has finally seen its adept version come out after a bug caused the Nightfall weapon rotation to be reset earlier in the season. I've seen a lot of people calling this the best PvE sniper in the game, but I wanted to take a look at the numbers to see if that's actually true, and if so, by how much does this thing beat the other snipers we currently have available in Destiny 2. But before we begin, if you like this video, remember that a like and subscribe are greatly appreciated and they go a long way to help out the channel. As always, my Twitch channel is going to be linked in the description down below if you ever want to catch my live streams. I've been playing a lot of Destiny 2 there, as well as Pokemon Unite over the last few days. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and let's get started. If you didn't already know, the Uzume RR4 is an old sniper rifle from Destiny 1 that has now been brought into Destiny 2 in Season of the Splicer. It is a 90 RPM solar sniper that drops from Nightfall strikes, with an adept version dropping from the Grandmaster difficulty. I've done about 65 runs of GM Warden of Nothing this week to try and get triple tap with Vorpal Weapon, but unfortunately, the magazine perks never gave me enough to push that magazine to 7 rounds using either Adept magazine or Backup mag. However, I eventually decided to check Uzume's damage with both that roll of triple tap Vorpal and another roll that I was very curious about, which was actually Appended Mag, Bottomless Grief, and Vorpal Weapon. If you weren't aware, Bottomless Grief received a pretty major buff at the start of Season 14, which added a flat magazine bonus to the perk, equivalent to the bonus given by Extended Mag. However, unlike Extended Mag, it does not carry with it the reload penalty. This makes Uzume unique in that it can actually stack Bottomless Grief and something like Appended or Extended Mag in order to get the 7-round magazine, which is the cap on magazine size for a sniper in Destiny 2, while still being able to slot a mod that would improve its damage instead of having to use Backup Mag. Basically, it will allow you to get a free extra 7.5% damage from either Boss Spec, Major Spec, or the Adept Big One Spec mod to stack with Vorpal Weapon instead of, again, having to use a magazine mod. The other bonus to the Bottomless Grief roll is the fact that now all Adept weapons from Nightfalls have Bottomless Grief as a selectable trait in the 3rd column, making the only RNG on this weapon for that roll come in the form of the magazine trait and getting Vorpal Weapon in the 4th column. I also want to say that the Bottomless Grief Uzume roll is going to be using this perk almost exclusively for the free magazine bonus, not because of the perk that gives you an instant reload on kill when you're the last Guardian standing. As it's been said before, part of the problem with Bottomless Grief is that it only activates when your whole team is dead. This is why actually it received this buff to give it the magazine size. I will be looking at that role specifically later in the video, but first I do want to highlight what is pretty much going to be considered the most optimal role, being any bonus mag perk like Appended, Extended, or Tactical Mag, Triple Tap, and Vorpal Weapon. But before I start doing the math on this role, I do want to say that although most of my damage calculation videos so far use weapons with no mods equipped at all, I will be using both magazine mods, such as Backup Mag and Adept Mag in certain cases, as well as using Boss, Major, and Big One spec mods, since most every role that I will look at in this video does benefit greatly from one or the other, and as a result, I want to make sure that roles taking advantage of Backup Mag get to do so, while roles that take advantage of Boss, Major, or Big One spec mods to get more damage also get to do so, since the roles become much closer and more competitive with each other once you do calculate in weapon mods. I also want to give a quick heads up as to what mag perks will and will not get you to 7-round mags when you do not have Bottomless Grief. For a normal Uzume, you have to get Appended or Extended Mag and equip a Backup Mag mod to hit the 7-round cap. For the Adept version only, you can get Appended, Extended, or Tactical Magazine, since if you get Tactical Mag, you can use the Adept Magazine mod to sacrifice a small portion of your handling for an even larger magazine. You still can't get over 7 shots with Adept Mag, as that is a hard cap for the weapons-based magazine size. Perks like Triple Tap and Clown Cartridge let you get a few more bullets per magazine, but those perks are not actually affecting the base magazine size of the weapon. They are acting like a buff. However, for our Triple Tap and Vorpal Weapon God roll with a backup mag mod equipped, you get to hit each shot on our Servitor Lost Sector boss for 21,144. When we take Triple Tap into account, we find that with perfect accuracy, we get a 10-round mag. This 10-round mag total damage will equal 211,440 damage. It will take us 6.67 seconds to fire all 10 shots. Accounting for the reload speed, we get a time of 2.89 seconds to reload for a total time of 9.56 seconds. Dividing our 1 magazine damage by the total time gives this roll a DPS value of 22,116. That's pretty good. You also get to carry 21 rounds total in reserve, equating to 3 magazines. If we assume perfect accuracy across every single magazine, we will have a total of 9 extra bullets given to us by Triple Tap, bringing our 1 reserve total up to 30 bullets. That gives this roll a potential total damage output of 634,320, which is higher than every other legendary sniper in the game, but it again does require perfect accuracy to make full use of Triple Tap. If you miss 1 shot in each mag, you will only get half of your potential Triple Tap procs as a result. This would cut the weapon's total damage down to 528,600 total damage, which is still very good. One thing I do want to note is that if you miss 1 crit, the actual DPS drops to 19,905, at which point the other roll of Uzume that I am about to mention will be better, since its damage per second does not actually drop as much for missing a crit. The other Uzume that I wanted to look at was going to be Bottomless Grief with a Pendant Mag and Vorpal Weapon. You get a 7-round magazine off of your perks and traits alone, so you get to keep your mod slot open for something like Boss Spec, Major Spec, or Adept Big Ones if you have the Adept version. This roll is also much easier to obtain for players who do play Grandmaster Nightfalls, since you will only need to roll for Vorpal Weapon and your magazine perk, given that Bottomless Grief is always selectable on Adept Nightfall drops. This roll, with Adept Big Ones equipped, does 22,787 damage per shot. It is a 7-round magazine for a 1 mag total of 159,509 damage. It takes 4.66 seconds to fire all 7 shots, with the same 2.89 second reload speed value, and you'll get a total time of 7.56 seconds, which will give you a damage per second value of 21,100. This is 5% less than the Triple Tap roll, but in my opinion, this DPS difference is not enough to completely rule out using a Bottomless Grief and Vorpal Weapon roll. The Bottomless Grief roll also has a 7.5% improvement in its burst damage since it has the Adept Big Ones mod, which is basically just a boss and major spec combined. So if you have the normal Uzume instead of the Adept, you still do get this 7.5% higher burst, but you only get it against bosses or majors, not both at the same time. The difference in total damage is the most significant, as the Bottomless Grief Vorpal Weapon combo has 478,527 total damage across 1 reserve, which is still pretty good, but not nearly as insane as the Triple Tap roll, making it a 25% difference. So which Uzume do I think is better? Well, the Triple Tap Vorpal roll is better, but it has a couple asterisks that I think need to be put next to the word better. First, it will require absolute perfect aim, which not even the very best players will be able to pull off with full consistency in PvE when you have things like weapon flinch and bosses that move. If people did have pinpoint aim, then we'd still be using Whisper of the Worm, which by comparison, by itself, has 45,538 damage per second and 683,064 total damage when you calculate damage using its catalyst. Much higher than Uzume, even though it is an exotic and is in the heavy slot. The one thing about the Uzume with Triple Tap is that it, just like Whisper, does also become much weaker if you start missing shots because you have a backup mag mod. So you are relying on your own accuracy to get you more damage, whereas the Bottomless Grief roll has slightly higher damage per shot due to using a Big Ones, Major, or Boss Spec mod, and it begins to fly past the Triple Tap roll if you start missing a couple shots here and there on either, because it depends on exactly how accurate you're going to be able to be, but the more shots you miss with triple tap, the less bullets you'll have towards the back end, whereas with the bottomless grief vorpal roll, you don't get any bullets back for landing accurate shots, so missing a couple doesn't necessarily cut your DPS as hard. For raid bosses like Morgeth, who do not move at all, sure, you can always get full triple tap activations, but for a boss like Atheon, who has a very small crit hitbox and moves a lot, it'll be very difficult by comparison. We have no clue yet what Witch Queen's raid encounters are going to look like, but I imagine it'll be much more like trying to hit Atheon than trying to hit Morgeth, just since Bungie has tried to make their raid bosses less vulnerable during DPS phases after some of the criticisms given to raids like Deepstone Crypt for being so easy. I'd argue that for cases where perfect aim is very difficult, you could just use Sleeper instead, since, as I mentioned in my recent Sleeper video, we looked at how Sleeper still does 72% of its maximum potential damage when landing body shots, absolutely blowing snipers out of the water by comparison. Yes, Sleeper and Whisper mean that you can't use something like Anarchy, but again, we have to remember that an Anarchy nerf has actually been confirmed. And while we don't know what that nerf will exactly be, I wouldn't be surprised if its boss damage gets targeted, bringing guns like Sleeper and Whisper of the Worm back into usability. On top of all that, it's just up to RNG whether you can actually get triple tap and Vorpal with a magazine or not. I've done almost 65 runs of Grandmaster Warden of Nothing this week, and I've yet to pull one with the magazine perk. The two that I did get with triple tap and Vorpal had no magazine perk, so they were basically just adored but solar. The Bottomless Grief roll with Vorpal is so much easier to obtain, since Bottomless Grief is guaranteed on all Adept Nightfall weapons, and it does come very close in terms of damage per second. I think that if you do get the triple tap roll, definitely use it, but if you don't want to farm GMs endlessly for maximum optimization, get you one with a mag perk in Vorpal, swap its first column perk to Bottomless Grief, slot your big ones mod, and enjoy. It's still very much an S tier legendary sniper, even without triple tap. To show just how good it is, I actually compared this weapon to other legendary snipers just to show that it can play in the big leagues right now. Some of these exist as alternatives to Uzume, seeing as things like Long Shadow do have access to perks that the Uzume just doesn't have, namely Field Prep and Rapid Hit. But I would like to look at some of the other legendary snipers we currently have. I'll start with Adored, since it's the same slot and the same archetype with very similar god roll. Adored has been considered one of the best legendary snipers that we have in the game since its release in Season of the Hunt, and with a boss spec mod, it hits for the same 22,787 damage per shot with a DPS value of 17,830, which is a good bit lower than Uzume, and Adored has a total damage output of 478,527 when using triple tap and Vorpal. This is identical to the Bottomless Grief Uzume's total damage, but with less DPS and less ammo reserves, as well as the lack of the Big Ones mod or other Adept mods. Even without triple tap, the Uzume with Bottomless Grief is a straight upgrade from Adored. Long Shadow with backup mag is also a very good sniper, hitting for 19,305 damage per shot with triple tap. It does 22,266 damage per second when you use Field Prep for Overload, and it also has a total damage output of 617,760, which is lower than the Uzume's full potential, but only about 3% lower. It can also get Rapid Hit, which will have slightly higher DPS and slightly lower total damage, but not enough to make a difference notable here. Succession, the sniper from the Deepstone Crypt raid with Reconstruction and Vorpal, as well as a boss spec mod, hits for a staggering 29,341 per shot with an 8-round mag. That's very high for a legendary sniper rifle. It does 24,997 DPS with that 8-round mag and has a 1 total reserve damage of 528,138. This thing has really good DPS, but it has even better burst with its one-shot damage value. Very strong sniper that I still think is the best in its slot, and now Uzume is able to provide similar power in the energy slot compared to the kinetic. Last, I have Praetor's Revenge, which I won't do super in-depth on because I made a video about this one specifically. If you would like to see more about that, you can check that out. But with rewind rounds and either Frenzy or High Impact Reserves, it's about 44,000 DPS with very low total damage of somewhere between 200 and 300,000, not enough to even touch Uzume, because 140 RPM snipers have very good DPS and low overall damage. Again, if you want a more in-depth look on this thing, I have a whole video on it, which is why I'm not giving super specific numbers here about this gun. It's very different from Uzume. In conclusion, however, the Uzume RR4 is actually a very strong sniper rifle, but the most optimal roll is a huge pain to get, and another very strong roll is actually quite easy to get, so I do actually recommend going into the Grandmaster Warden of Nothing and farming at the very least for one that has Vorpal Weapon and a magazine perk, since the perfect triple tap roll will take a lot more time than it's worth in my opinion. DPS-wise, Bottomless Grief and Vorpal is almost the exact same. Even though the total damage does fall off towards the end, you can definitely make that up with your heavy or your super. And currently, we don't have any content where we're using snipers where total damage output actually matters that much, since even for something like Master Mode Atheon, snipers aren't very commonly used. However, again, that is all I have for this weapon review, so if you liked the video or found it helpful, remember to leave a like and subscribe if you want some more, and check out my Twitch channel down below if you're interested in catching some of my live streams. This has been Kazungu, and I'll catch you on the next one. Later, everyone.